every single breath, inescapable love, guiding every step. Like gravity, you're pulling me in. The great migration of my heart, it's calling me home. It calls me over and over and over again. How could I ever fight? Why would I try? And over and over and over again. Will I hear your spirit calling? Why would I fight? The great migration of my heart, it's calling me home. Uncontainable life, it's beating in my chest. Undeniable peace, bringing me to rest. Well, like gravity, you're pulling me in. Great migration of my heart, it calls me over and over and over again. How could I ever fight? Why would I try? Over and over and over again. I hear your spirit calling. Why would I fight? Great migration of my heart. The great migration of my heart, it's calling me home. It's calling me home. Let's sing this out this morning, Suncoast. Into the valley, through the river, you're calling, then I'm coming. Over mountains, through the wastelands, you're coming, then I'm coming. Through the valley, through the river, you're coming, then I'm coming, yeah.
again. Oh, you see it all, still you want me. How you love me, how you love me. Your kindness and mercy remind me how you love me, how you love me as I am. All my regrets and my failures, all of my wrongs have been left at the cross. Now all that remains is the Father's love. Oh Lord, you take me as I am. Over and over you call me yours again. You see it all, still you want me. How you love me, how you love me. Your kindness and mercy reminds me how you love me, how you love Oh Lord, you take me as I
Standing here in your presence, in a grace so relentless, I am won by perfect love. Right within the arms of heaven, in a peace so it's forever, sinking deep in mercy. See, and I'm wide awake. I'm drawing close, stirred by grace, and oh, my heart is yours. No fear removed. I breathe you in and lean into your love. Oh, your love. Sing this out. And when I'm lost, you pursue me. Lift my head to see your glory, Lord of all. So beautiful. Here in you, I find shelter, captivated by the splendor of your face. It's my secret place, and I'm wide awake, drawing close, stood by grace, and oh, my heart is yours, and no fear removed. I breathe you in, lean into your love. Oh, your love. Can we just sing out this morning as a church saying, God, your love is washing over me. Sing, your love so deep is washing over me. Your face is all I see. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you drawing close, stirred by grace, and oh, my heart is yours. Will all fear removed, I breathe you in, lean into your love. Oh, your is all I seek. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry to know you all my life. Love so deep is washing over me. Your face is all I see. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry to know you all my life. So deep is washing over me. Your face is all I see. You are my Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry to know you all my life. Love so deep is washing over. Your face is all Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry to know you all my life. 'Cause I wanna love you. And I close my eyes to see my King in majesty. 'Cause your grace compels my soul to love and drawing close. And I lift my hands and sing and surrender everything. When you, I know I'm found. And my God, to you I bow. Not until forever. Jesus, I surrender. Show me what I don't know, more of you. I'm desperate for your presence, longing to be with you. Lead me to a new place, more of you. Come on, let's sing it out. And through the fire, I'll persevere. I won't submit to any fear. And where I go, you've been before. And all my trust is in you, Lord. desperate for your presence, longing to be with you. Lead me to a new place, more of you. Say now and still forever, Jesus, I surrender. Show me what I don't know, more of you. I'm desperate for your presence, longing to be with you. Lead me to a new place, more of you. Lead me to you, God. And lead me to you forever, Lord. I will pursue, and I will pursue. Oh, you are my heart, Jesus. You're all that I want, all that I want. Oh, lead me to you forever, Lord. I will pursue, and I will pursue. Oh, you are my heart, Jesus. You're all that I want, all that I want. Oh, lead me to you forever, Lord. I will pursue, and I will pursue, yeah. Yeah. Oh, you are my heart, Jesus. You're all that I want, all that I
All I need is you, Lord. Is you, Lord. All I need is you. All I need is you, Lord. Is you, Lord. All I need is you. All I need is you, Lord. Is you, Lord. All I need is you. And all I need is you, Lord. Is you, all I need is you, Lord. Is you, Lord. All I need is you. All I need is you, Lord. Is you, Lord.
lead me to you forever, Lord. I will pursue, and I will pursue. You are my heart, Jesus. You're all that I want, all that I want. Open my eyes, let me know more of your love, more of your love. Here I will wait, just for a glimpse higher, higher than the world could understand. Foolish as the cross, humbled as the grace you give, the wisdom of a kingdom made to last. I don't wanna build this life on Babylon of bricks and pride, sitting on a fault line bound to grave. I'd rather be a bedrock fool than trusting nothing less than you. Every other sure thing surely fails. Again. If it's what I need, I'll take my place. 'Cause I don't wanna build this house with rubble from the same old ground, sitting on a fault line bound to grave. I'd rather build a Roman bedrock of an empty grave. Every other sure thing surely fails. Lord, through it all, through the wind and the storm, on this rock I'll stay. May fall, pillars fail, people fall, but your word still stands. Age after age, till the earth fades away, still your kingdom stands. Guys, for singing out with us this morning. Enjoy the rest of the service.
High upon the pinnacle of the human heart sits the throne of supremacy, surrounded below by competing kingdoms, whose rulers vie for the affections of its regent, who alone has been granted authority to bestow the crown. Some seek only riches. Others long for the fealty and adoration of others. Some simply desire power above all. One king, only one, yearns to unite them under the banner of love, the good of all. Which one will emerge victorious with scepter in hand to unite the kingdoms of the heart? To whom will the regent bestow the crown of glory? Who will win this game of thrones?
Good morning. It's good to see you today. Thank you so much for being here. Let me try that again. Good morning. Welcome. Glad you're here today. I'm Larry Baucom. I'm the founding pastor of Suncoast, and it's my privilege to stand before you today. Before I get started, let me just remind you, in your hand there's some notes, and if you look on the back of the teaching notes, a lot of things to fill in the blank today. But it talks about a Suncoast family kids family camp out. If you're interested in that, read through that. It talks about something that's happening on Friday, February 18th. But some fun for the family, and you read the other things there. Take a moment just to remind you where those announcements are. Today we're in the series called Game of Thrones. And what is Game of Thrones? Well, it's a series of teachings from the Gospel of Matthew. These sermons are try to take us back to the ancient world, and we see the tension among those vying for power, the thrones of that day. We're studying what Matthew has to say about Jesus and how that Jesus entered the world to make a difference in our understanding and perception of power. Much of what Jesus had to say back then was countercultural, and guess what? It still is. Game of Thrones is really, it's a series about the study of the heart. A study that asks questions, for example, what's my heart's desire? Who owns my heart? So the first week we looked at the Matthew chapter 5. This is the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus comes to John to be baptized, and he asked John, he said, baptize me. And John said, no, you baptize me. And Jesus kind of rebukes John a little bit and says, look, why do you deter me? Why are you trying to set my agenda? Please don't do that. And I so often am reminded of how many times I have an agenda, and sometimes it's not exactly what God wants for me. I really want God's agenda. The Game of Thrones, who is going to guide and direct the core of my life desire? So that was week one. The second week, Jesus was in the wilderness, and he was tempted. Turn these stones into bread. You're hungry. Take care of your personal needs. And we talked about how temptation sometimes happens, but transformation is the ultimate goal. Week three, we talked about the poor in spirit and those who are meek. The poor in spirit are those who are humble, but the meek are not those who are weak, who are wimps. The meek are those who have significant strength and power in their life, but they keep it. And we use the analogy, it's like having a sword that shows my strength, but I keep the sword in the sheath. That's meekness. Week four, Troy and Brett did a wonderful dialogue about salt and light, and I thought it was fun. I sat and listened to it. They made me laugh a lot, and I appreciate that. But the characteristics of salt and life, balance, flavor, influence are great. But if too much salt, too much light, you can't really find your way. Too much light is blinding. Too much salt is too salty. Too little salt is not enough, and too little light, you're in the darkness. And they talked a little bit, and this is where they had the fun about the oversaved or the Jesus talkers. Those people that they can't have a conversation without, and sometimes it's just so much bright, so much salt, we are pushed back on that a little bit. So anyways, last week I talked to you about how that Jesus did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. What does that mean? Well, the common theme in the Sermon on the Mount, underscoring the fact that Jesus wants his followers to think and act differently, but he came to create inspiration where love transforms, not mandates. See, the intention of the law, the Ten Commandments, was to change people's actions. To follow the law, you follow it or you face the punishment by the community. The motivation for the law was fear. Fear keeps us in line, but it doesn't do much for changing who we are. When the motivation is love, we begin to experience acceptance and love, and our lives begin to transform. Today we're looking at a practical teaching. You know what I'm going to call this? Anger management. I think I'm about doing a movie about that. If I can just get Adam Sandler on board, but we'll see how it goes. But anger management. Here's a question I thought about today. Why not make a rule? A Suncoast rule, a Suncoast law. Here it is. I want to make one. Do not get angry. Is that a good one? Now that I've made that rule, guess what? You don't ever have to be angry again. Anger is abolished because I made the rule, the commandment, do not get angry. That's not the way it works, Pastor. You made the rule, but I still am angry. Welcome to the Ten Commandments and the teaching of the Jewish nation. We still get angry. Rules or laws do not change us. They may make us conform, but we are not changed by the fear-based commandments. Today I want us to learn about anger. And what should I do about my anger? So today we're going to start in Matthew chapter 5, a few verses there, and then we're going to jump in on several things to talk about today. But here's the scripture. You can follow along. You've heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fires of hell. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to them, and then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who's taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge. And the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Today, I want to give you several notes. They're in your worship folder if you'd like to fill in the blank. The first encouragement is this: diffuse my anger. Matthew 5 says, you've heard that it was said, don't murder. Anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. I tell you, anyone who's angry will be subject to judgment. Jesus raises the standard. He says, if you want to live a life of integrity, work on the inside. Don't pat yourself on the back because you've never murdered anyone. Instead, work on your anger. I mean, I feel pretty good about not murdering someone, don't you? But have you ever thought about it? Are you married? You have kids? You have parents? You have siblings? I mean, I just tell you, you have neighbors? I mean, sometimes we joke about that, but sometimes it's not the outward action of murder. Instead, we need to work on our anger, the inside emotion that often leads to harm. Now, let's understand that in the New Testament, there's one occasion when Jesus gets angry. I will let you know he does get angry at one place, but what's he angry about? He goes in the temple, he overturns the money changers because they abusing the place of worship. So is it possible to get angry as a human being? Absolutely. I have a group of guys I meet with on a regular basis, and I ask them, I say, guys, help me today. I'm going to be talking this week. What makes you angry? This is about 15 or 20 guys. And this is one of the things I heard. I don't get angry. I get frustrated. I get annoyed. I get irritated. I get stressed, but I don't get angry. I thought it was pretty good, don't you? Yeah, I made that up. Because I don't really consider myself getting angry. But I consider all the other things. But I asked the guys, what makes you angry? You know what they said? Stupid drivers. I said, well, you must be angry every day in Sarasota. Or road rage. Or people who stand me up, they say they're going to meet me and then they don't. I get angry when people yell or people are rude. I get angry when I've been on hold for 45 minutes. I get angry and then it went to insurance companies, utility companies. And I said, well, that's the next one. Well, guys, what do you do when you get angry? And one of the guys said, well, I cuss quietly. And the other guy said, not me. I cuss loudly. I mean, sometimes I feel depressed. And others said, well, it just depends. When I get angry, depends on what happens. So today I'm going to tell you a story. This is a story that happened to me. It's a story of anger. And it's a firsthand story, something that happened to me in the early 80s. So I've never told this because I've never been bold enough to tell it. The story when the pastor got angry. You ready? Becky and I were young adults. We had 2 kids, not the third one. And we lived in Fort Myers. And my in-laws came down from Bradenton. And while they were there, they were watching the kids. And Becky and I said, we'll get pizza. So back then, the only place you get pizza was Pizza Hut. We called the pizza. We ordered it. We drove onto 41, just like 41 here in Sarasota. It's in Fort Myers. And as we're driving up the 6-lane 41, 2 kids, middle schoolers on bicycles in dark shirts cut across the 6 lanes. And I'm young and have quick reflexes. I had to slam on my brakes and swerve to keep from hitting one of the kids. I mean, I could have killed him. In that moment, my adrenaline started rushing. They drove on down the road, along the side of the road, and I pulled over and thought, these kids are going to get killed. So I pulled over and stopped. One of them went on and went around the corner, came back along this big ditch, and he was on the other side of the ditch, and the ditch was about 10 feet deep. And I looked at the guy and said, guys, you know, you're out here on this road at night in the pitch black on bikes, so I almost hit you. You could be in the hospital right now. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is dangerous. Please don't do this. And the one down across the ditch said, F you. And the other kid sitting right here, he said, yeah, F you. I was in my 20s. I picked up the kid's bicycle over my head like King Kong, and threw it down in the chasm of the ditch. I said, there. My wife scored in the car in shock. And this other kid, both then start cursing, cussing, depends on where you're from, but they were giving me a lot of language. One of the kids on the other side of the ditch threw a rock and hit my car. It's the first new car I ever owned. It's only about a year old. And when it hit my car, I jumped in that car and took off after that kid. The whole time my wife said, honey, calm down, calm down, calm down. I said, look, I'm a pastor, I'm okay. No, I didn't say that. I drove on around and I couldn't catch the kid. But as I drove down to get pizza and came back to the house, started calming down. When I got back to the house, I looked at my 1982 Honda Accord, not a very big Accord, like a Civic is now. It had desert tan, but where the windshield above the driver's head, the car was only about that tall. That rock hit right in the top and put a dent in the top of my car, that big around, and that desert tan, it was just dark there. All the paint was knocked off. I looked at that, and I told my wife, I said, I'm not going to fix that. She said, why? I said, because every time I get in the car, I want to be reminded of what an idiot I was today. I want it to be a constant reminder for years that dent was in the car. Why? Because sometimes we need a reminder of the things that we do that are embarrassing to us. I've never told this story in 40 years because it's embarrassing. Because I want you guys to know that I am fully in control, but I want you to know also, don't cut in front of me with a bicycle even today. You just never know what I might do. Past performance is no indicator of future, but honestly, it seems like as you grow older and more mature, you begin to say, there are some techniques that I want to share with you today that'll keep you from throwing the bike in the ditch. Fair enough? And I want to share those with you because I think they're important for us. These are techniques that I developed over the years because I don't want to be a person of anger. I mean, I still get frustrated, but I've learned to ask myself, why are you frustrated? Why are you stressed? Why do you seem a little tense? I had this conversation with myself. And one of the tactics I've learned, and I've shared this with you because it's important, I used to say breathe in and breathe out and say, the Lord is my shepherd. Now I breathe in and breathe out and smile. Life can be as simple as, you put a smile on your face and your heart will follow. It seems to lift the mood. I've also learned, take a break, pull myself out of that situation. Now, if someone were to come in and try to threaten my family, if someone does something to a child, I think that should stir up some anger within us, okay? Anger is a good human emotion. It should not be just completely obliterated from our lives. But sort of like meekness, you need to be able to control the strength that's yours and keep the sword in the sheath. Matthew uses a different word here. And then when he describes anger, if you know the original language, it doesn't mean that I got angry one time. It means those who are habitually angry, those who are angry every day about something. Do you know somebody like that? They're just always mad. And they're just waiting for the next thing to make them angry. It's a mindset in which we harbor anger and we long to get even to do something, even to a person. It's not this explosion, it's a constant mindset. So here's a story. Muhammad Ali tells a story that when he was a child, his parents gave him a brand new bicycle. A few days later, someone stole it. They filed a police report. The policeman asked him, what is he going to do if he caught the boy who stole it? He said, I don't know. So the policeman took Muhammad Ali to the gym and said, look, I think right here, let me teach you how to box. And he began to work with him and teach him how to box. And Ali said, to this day, I never found my bike, but every time I got into the ring, I look across at my opponent and say to myself, that's the guy that stole my bike. Anger is dangerous. It can ruin relationships. It can frighten a battered wife, destroy a friendship. It can negatively affect the workplace. Christ followers are to think and act differently. But how do we do that? How do we diffuse anger? I think there are several ways that we can do that. The starting point is to realize that anger is dangerous. If we don't think that it's dangerous, then we won't work on it. Psychologists suggest there are 5 levels of anger and its intensity. The first level is mild irritation. It's this uneasiness that's brought on by unpleasant disturbances. Maybe it's a traffic jam. Maybe you're leaving here and you go down Clark Road toward the interstate and you notice there's a blocked lanes and traffic there. A mild inconvenience. Maybe it's waiting for your food a little longer at a restaurant, or your cell phone rings when you didn't want it to ring, or someone else's rings. Or a baby that cries continually nearby and the mother or dad does not try to get the baby silenced. That's mild irritation. Then there's indignation. It's the reaction, something unfair and unreasonable. For example, watching the Super Bowl today, if you're a Rams or a Bengals fan, and all of a sudden they get a bad call. Indignation is when you throw your chips and dip at the TV. It's a little more than mild, but not severe. You're not really hurting yourself, you're just making a mess. But then the third thing is wrath. This is a strong desire to avenge, and that's where someone says, payback. I'm just going to wait, and payback is coming. Number 4 is fury. This suggests violence, momentary loss of control. That most murders occur during domestic conflicts. It's a moment when someone snaps. That's fury. Rage is the most dangerous form of anger. It can so overcome a person that acts of brutal violence are performed with conscious awareness. A person will calculate coolly and calmly how to destroy their adversary. So to diffuse anger, there are several suggestions, and I'm going to give them to you. They're in your notes. They're also on the screen. I need to learn the cause of my anger. Why does the driver cutting me off on the road make me mad? When your significant other jokingly says something to her family about you, why does that offend you? How do you handle human conflicts? What makes you angry? Is it an insensitive coworker, an incompetent driver, unreasonable demands from the boss, neglect from a spouse, ridicule from family, or judgmental words from your pastor? So, what is it that makes you angry? I have an example of a mom who gets angry. See what you think.
So you went and got a marker.
We wanted to be bad guys. That's why we did it.
You did it for why?
Because we wanted to be bad guys. And we were sorry. Are you mad at us?
I mean, I'm pretty upset.
Was my daddy gonna be mad too?
Who knows? Who knows?
Maybe we should think about what we've done.
You think thinking about what you've done is going to take away the marker all over your chest?
If we take a bath, it will. Maybe I will. And David will when I get done, and Aiden will. I said,
You are officially never allowed to use a marker again.
yeah, but I did the draw.
Well, try paper next time.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, aren't you just furious at that? Not me. You know, I don't think the mom was either. If she had been really mad, I don't think she'd been videoing the whole thing. But she saw, oh, this is going to be a moment to remember. I'm pretty upset right now. That's deep South. I can say that because I'm a Southerner. But I mean, well, what's going on? Different things make different people angry for different reasons. What's the appropriate punishment? Life is not as simple as, well, I never get angry because the pastor commanded, don't get angry, therefore I never get angry. Nor is it I'm angry because of everything that goes on. I have this habitual anger thing going. I'm just mad at everyone. How do we diffuse anger? I need to learn the cause of my anger. Secondly, I need to learn to deal with my anger quickly. Counselors say it's bad to suppress anger. And I heard this recently. You know, there's only one letter difference between danger and anger. Just one letter. Be sure that we deal with it quickly. If you simply say, we'll deal with this later, and you sweep it under the carpet, maybe you ruin some relationships. I love Ephesians where it says, do not let the sun go down in your wrath. He's saying, you know, deal with it in an appropriate time. I love the joke after the don't let the sun go down in your wrath. One wife said, we've tried to live by that principle in our marriage, and we try very hard not to go to bed mad. It has worked quite well, although one time we did stay awake for 3 weeks. To diffuse anger, number 3, I need to learn to release my anger properly. Maybe I can replace that feeling with a service for others. Other ways that we can get rid of the anger or release the anger is maybe count to 10. Sit down. Write a letter to the person who wronged you and vent everything you want to vent, and do not mail the letter. But it gets it out of your system. And I've saved the most important step for last. To diffuse anger, For me, I need to learn when to take a break. Pray, meditate, breathe. We may need to transfer our anger over to God and allow him to help us deal with it. See, Jesus is trying to teach a very common sense principle. Do not let your anger out of control. Keep it in a way to where you can manage it. So the second encouragement is, I need to learn to control my speech. Once again, the bar is being raised. Those who live according to Christ's message need to guard their tongue. You know, they said that a 3-inch tongue could be the death of a 6-foot man. Just keep talking about it. I mean, Matthew says, anyone who keeps saying to his brother, you know, Raka is answerable to the Sanhedrin, but, you know, the person, Raka is just this, it's hard to translate from Greek to English because it's this contempt. It's the way you say it. It's all the tone. It's this disregard for somebody. Raka. Well, if you do that, you're going to go to the judgment area. And the Sanhedrin is the group of Pharisees and Sadducees who are going to judge over you. Then he goes on to say, but anyone who says you fool would be in danger of the fire of Gehenna. You know what the Sanhedrin and the leaders often would say when someone would come in? You fool. Why would you do that? Jesus is not only sticking it to this person, he's also sticking it to the group saying, hey, we're all got to give here some. We've got to understand what we're saying. And Jesus is warning against is language that condemns another person. If we don't deal with anger, it comes out in our speech. I mean, do you see how anger and speech go hand in hand? Sometimes it's better to be angry and not let it come out in your speech, come out in your meditation, come out in your writing, some other way. Because sometimes we spew out those words and you can't take them back. And all of a sudden it's like, you know, a hailstorm, the dings are in the personality and the life. And they remember 5 years ago what you said, 5 years. They remember 5 years ago what you said. And it's still damaging. Story of a family who took a vacation in Orlando to Adventure Island. Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey is a flight simulation ride through Hogwarts Castle. The minimum height requirement is 48 inches tall. And a story about a visiting family who waited nearly an hour in line for the ride. And they finally get up to where they get on the ride. And one of the attendants says, oh, wait a minute. I got to measure the height of this boy. And his dad said, stand up tall, Samuel. And he stands up by it. And it's 48 inches. He goes right up and his head touches the red line. And everybody applauds. He makes it. And the attendant says, no, he's got to be above the red line to get on this ride. And the dad felt very bad. He said, why don't you tell us before we waited an hour in line? He said, well, there's an attendant at the beginning that should have measured him. He said, well, he didn't. He said, well, sorry. He stepped around the corner with his son while his wife and other kids flew off on the brooms to do the Harry Potter thing. The dad's anger was flying as well. He took Samuel around the corner. Samuel started crying. He said, it's okay, buddy. Finally gets to the front where they walked to get to the line at the beginning, and they see the guy that should have checked him. He said, Samuel, you stay here just for a minute. I'm going to go talk to this boy. And he walked over. He said, why don't you do your job? He said, excuse me? He said, you see that boy crying over there? He's crying because you didn't do your job. You're sitting here talking to other people, not paying attention. And we went all the way up there. He's crying because of you. And then he spent the next minute or so just berating this young adult employee about how damaging he was and how he needed to get a clue and get a better job and do a better job. Says the day went on, the dad said he just started feeling guilty. So, you know, he's just a young college kid, and he started thinking about maybe he's talking to a girl, maybe he wasn't paying attention at all, maybe he hadn't been well trained, maybe he looked fine to him. And the more he thought about it, the guiltier he got. Then he thought, I would have been much better to teach my son a lesson then. Not a lesson in anger and explosion, but teach him a lesson how to take a deep breath, diffuse the anger, control your speech, maybe make an excuse for it, or just forgive the guy for blowing it. He had missed a great teaching moment. Have you ever missed one of those? Ouch. The third encouragement, seek reconciliation. Matthew 5:23 says, you know, if you're offering your gift at the altar, remember, if your brother has something against you, leave your gift, go find your brother, make things right, and come back and offer your gift. If you're at odds with someone, maybe the best thing you can do is somehow contact that individual and try to settle the issue. If you have something against someone or they have something against you, try to settle it. 46 years ago, when Becky and I were early married, and that's we're going to celebrate that next week. But 46 years is a long time. I mean, I got married. I was 18 years old when I met her. And, she made me married by the time I was 19. And we had kids when I was 25. She set the schedule. I just said, I do. And I will. And if you know my wife, you know she's very sweet. And we were laughing on the way in this morning. She said, I think a better way to say this is that, I said, we've been side by side 46 years. She said, yeah, but you've been kind of a little bit ahead, pulling me everywhere you want to go. I said, I prefer to say we're both in the horse and carriage. We're side by side. I just have the reins. And she said, pretty good. So I hope she's watching this because she knows I'd love her dearly, but that's really true. But here's what I did, and I'm embarrassed about it, but we get a little frustrated sometimes in the evening time. One of the things I've taught marriage enrichment, done a lot of marriage counseling, one of the things I tell couples, if it's a hot topic or anything that has any controversy in it at all, do not talk about it after 8 o'clock at night. And you might even make that 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Just say, I want to call a timeout. We can talk about this in the morning. First thing, okay? Write it down, talk about it then. Because when you get tired, you get unreasonable, right? And sometimes we get frustrated because we're tired. Tomorrow, it's no big deal. Today, it's a life and death issue. And one of the things we already decided to do is kneel and pray by the bed before we go to bed at night. And we'd kneel and pray, and I'd pray first, and I'd pray, then she'd pray. I'd pray, then she'd pray. And when we'd have a little bit of frustration or a little tiff or something's not going exactly right, and I prayed, I found it hard to pray. And before I'm done, when I finished praying, and she'd finished praying, I said, look, I'm really sorry. Because once I talk to God, it seems like he makes me better relationally. And I said, I'm really sorry. Then I found out sometimes when it's time to pray, I'd say, I pass. It waits for another day. I don't have to reconcile. But I do know it's true in my life that if I have something against someone, when I start praying and talking to God, he reminds me of the things I can do to make it right with my family. And who is my family? My neighbors, my community, all those people that I know, and even those people I don't know. I need to make sure I do the right thing for them. Don't let conflict brew. Self-control instead of anger may not come naturally for us. Kind words instead of belittling speech may seem foreign to us. Even our efforts at reconciliation are awkward at best. But if we were to summarize this teaching from Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, a couple of phrases. Pursue reconciliation. Second phrase, make it right. How can I do that? That's where the love of God comes in. See, I believe the Spirit of Christ lives in us and lives all around us. And it helps control us on the inside. It helps us control our anger. It helps control our heart. It's the love of God that motivates me to be the best Larry Baucom I can be. And it's the love of God that motivates you to be the best version of you can be. What does it take? It takes a moment, it takes a connection, and it takes a heart connected with him. Can I pray for you? Thank you, God, for your love in our lives. Forgive us for the times that we are angry. Forgive us for the times that we let it get out of control, or we say stinging things that hurt others. Father, in our hearts and lives, we honor you. Do in us what only you can do. Set our hearts on the right path. May they be directed toward God, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to tell you a story in closing. You stand, please, as I do that. This story about a friend of mine, true story, in Sarasota. His name was Tim. And Tim told me one day, he said, I was driving a Cadillac. He has a Cadillac. He said, I was getting off the exit, one of the exits in Sarasota. And he said, when I did, traffic was coming along, but there was just enough room for me to speed up a little bit and get right in front of this old van. And I slid right in that space. He said, as I went along, the guy was not very happy that I'd pulled in that space because the guy in the van thought it was just a little too tight. So he pulled up the first light, and he looks back, the van's honking his horn, and the guy's flipping him off. Both fingers. And he says, what's this about? I didn't do anything, So he drives to the next light. The guy's honking again and flipping him off, and he's waiting for him to pull over. Now, my friend Tim, he's starting to get angry. As a matter of fact, the more he did it, the more angry he got. Now you got two guys angry. And he says, pull it over, pull it over. My friend Tim, not a small guy, he pulls up and pulls his Cadillac over. When he did, he gets his big body out of that car, and he is muscles from top to bottom. Works out at the gym all the time, a big guy. And the guy pulls over in the van, this old van, and it's kind of little wimpy guy. What size is that? Well, whatever you are, he's smaller. Maybe 120 pounds, 130 pounds. He gets out there, but his face is red. He is so hot. And he's going up against this 260-pound guy. I mean, he's literally twice the guy. And as they're standing on the side of the road, one's coming, the other's coming. And as he comes up, the big guy, Tim, holds his hands up like this. He said, I want you to know, first of all, I am so sorry. I did not mean to cut you off that way, and I truly apologize. Will you forgive me? The little guy, he says, just seemed like all the red went out of his face, all the steam came out of him. And he said, oh, it's okay. I'm sorry I got so upset. We all make mistakes. Thanks for pulling over, he said, and apologizing. And you know, now I want to say very clearly, I do not recommend this strategy to resolve conflict. But it worked this one time. But I'll tell you where else it works. It works at home. It works with your spouse, a parent, in-law, sibling, teens and kids. Don't let anger build up. Pull over, take a break, take a deep breath, and quickly say, I'm so sorry. One more phrase. But do not say, I am sorry, but. Because if you say, I'm sorry, but, what you're really saying to me is, you're a sorry but. Even if I'm right, I can say, I'm sorry I upset you. Please forgive me. When we do this, when we follow the teachings of Jesus, that's the love of God at work in our lives. Allow the Spirit of Christ today to live in you. He loves you today. So do I. Thanks for coming.